Several years ago, when I was on a study tour of Israel, the group I was traveling with slipped into the West Bank town of Hebron, where few tourists ever go. I say slipped in because we arrived during a time of relative stability when our guide decided it might be safe to visit. I was thrilled because we were going to visit the Cave of Machpelah, also known as the Tomb of the Patriarchs. This is where Abraham and Sarah, Isaac and Rebekah, and Jacob and Leah are purportedly buried. I couldn't wait to visit this ancient site revered by Jews, Christians, and Muslims because I have long had an affinity with the biblical matriarch Sarah. Perhaps it's because she gave birth at such an old age. Here's how I begin her story in my book, Less Than Perfect. Older than dirt, that is Sarah. Her skin hangs like sackcloth, wrinkled and rough, yet hers is a face that still makes men look so beautiful. It once charmed kings. You might think her a fool for all the nonstop laughter. Her body shakes with it. But she is no fool, only a woman who can't stop marveling at what God has done. Though her husband is more than 100 years old, and she not far behind, she's pregnant with his child. Who wouldn't find that funny? Two old sticks kindling a fire. But then it comes, yet another jab of pain snaking down her leg. Ow! The added weight is hard to bear, and loose joints make her wonder whether she will topple over. Though the baby is so ripe she can hardly bend, she never complains. How could she, since the Almighty has answered her prayers? Sarah laughs again, this time because her baby is kicking. He's like a little rabbit whose feet thump softly against her belly. It won't be long before I hold him in my arms, she thinks. But how does she know it will be a son? Sitting in a quiet corner of her tent, Sarah thinks back, remembering all the hurtful things that once were whispered behind her back. She remembers the bitterness she felt every time she heard other women clucking because God had not blessed her with children. Surely, they would say, Sarah must have done something exceedingly wicked for God to have closed her womb. So I could relate to Sarah's incredible challenges as a very old mother. Granted, she was 90 when her son was born, and I was only 46 when I adopted my first child. But I could identify. I could also relate to the shadows in her character. How she laughed when God made a promise too impossible to believe, and how she tried to make it come true by suggesting that her husband sleep with her maid Hagar, whom she had probably acquired when she and Abraham traveled to Egypt to escape a famine. And then all the disastrous consequences that followed, including her harsh treatment of Hagar, who forgot her place when she became the mother of Ishmael, Abraham's eldest son. When Sarah finally did deliver her baby, she named him Isaac, which means laughter, as though she and God had been in on the joke together. Plus, the New Testament praises her for her faith. After all, she did leave her homeland to go with Abraham to the land God had promised. At one point, following Abraham even landed her in Pharaoh's harem. Though I couldn't relate to the harem, I could certainly relate to the seriously imperfect, over-controlling mother who was Sarah, and to the fact that God protected and used her despite her imperfections. No wonder she laughed. Sarah's life is echoed throughout the pages of Scripture in other stories about barren women who struggled to conceive. Rebekah, Samson's mother, Hannah, and Elizabeth come quickly to mind. As painful as infertility is for many women today, in biblical times it was considered a curse, a mark of God's displeasure. It was nothing less than a divine judgment. In those days, people wouldn't have grasped the biological reality that a human being is created only when a female egg is fertilized by male sperm. They believed that life was created when a man planted his seed into a woman's womb. The woman was seen as a receptacle or incubator in which the seed could grow. If a couple failed to conceive after the man had done his job, or if the child miscarried, the wife was invariably blamed. Sarah's barrenness must have put tremendous pressure on her marriage. She couldn't have known that her inability to bear children earlier in life had nothing to do with her sin, but it had everything to do with God's plan to bring about a new people, children of the promise, of whom Abraham would be father and Sarah would be mother. Her pregnancy must have brought a profound sense of vindication and relief. 4,000 years after her death, Sarah's story lives on. When she died at the age of 127, she could not have imagined the glories or the troubles that lay ahead for the descendants of the two sons of Abraham, the Arabs, who are Ishmael's descendants, and the Jews, who come from Isaac's line. The tomb of the patriarchs, which I was privileged to visit, is not far from where Sarah would have sat in her tent, laughing out loud, when she first heard God's outrageous promise to give her and her husband a son.